Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Mortgage Coach Insane Productivity Mastermind call. As the moderators today, you have myself, Dave Savage, Todd Bookspan, Jen DuPlessis, and Michele Town. So you've got an amazing group of leaders on today's call. We know for sure that we want to talk about accountability. Not only, how can we hold our team accountable and the people around us, but how can we hold ourselves accountable? That is a topic that we kind of synced up on behind the curtain here a few minutes ago. We're still hearing a lot of challenges with, listing agents. And again, there's challenges, positioning your buyer so that they are the top offer that gets accepted. And then there's also a lot of opportunities there. So we're going to have a discussion around that. I would encourage anybody and everybody on the call, if you do have a question, make sure you raise your hand or post it in the GoToWebinar control panel. Also, we will have our private Facebook group up, and we'll be taking some notes. If you want to share a success story, if you want to share something, let's make sure we speak to that. Todd, I know one of our members put a post and asked a question in the Facebook page. Let's make sure we talk about that a little bit today, just so that we're being responsive to anything that comes up on that page. And with that said, I'll hand it off to Todd. And Todd, why don't you, share some opening thoughts, and then let's go around the room and have a bit of a mastermind together.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Super excited to be here and have Jen and Michele alongside of me here today. I just love this call every Friday. A couple of ground rules. The more we hear from all of you, the better these calls tend to go. I love the fact that Carl gave us already a response in the Facebook page. That is great. Just remember, you guys can raise your hands in GoToMeeting, and then we will call on you. And you also can type in a question, and we'll be taking a look there. Over the past, probably let's call it 6-8 weeks, we have a pretty wide group of people from where everyone is within Insane Productivity. We've got typically it equally divided up between people in the first third, people in the middle third, people in the last third, and then people going through it for the second or third time. And so we've got a really great input. There's no spoilers. So if somebody talks about Module 9 and you're only on Module 2, don't worry. All they're doing is actually giving you a little bit of preview, and I think that part's great. And then I love the fact that we've really gotten this group kind of talking about what's going on in the mortgage world too. So we're trying to weave in Insane Productivity along with what is, what's going on and how people are doing. So Dave just put up there the quick poll. If we could get you guys to jump in and just real quick tell us where you are currently, so that we kind of get a little bit of a sprinkle of where you guys are today. That would be fabulous. And look at that, pretty even. Although we're definitely going through again, and so we got a lot of veterans too. And I'm always appreciative of hearing that, because that just tells me that you guys are having a good time with this call. I think we should probably. We'll get to Carl's question in a moment. I'd love to start off just kind of bringing in Michele. Michele has come on every week. For those who don't know her, she's a $100 million producer from Southern California with RPM Mortgage, runs a team, and she's been pretty transparent with the group that there's been some team member challenges, and she's really been sharing her great ideas of her success as well as what's going on in her world. And I love the idea of accountability. So why don't you set the stage for us, Michele?
Thanks so much, everybody. It's great to see you. Happy Friday, April 21st, I think. So I'm super happy, trying to get back on track. I am always transparent. What you see is what you get with me, which is good and bad sometimes. But I wanted to say something a couple weeks ago. I had some technical challenges, but I wanted to shout out to Todd for really taking the time and taking an hour with me and just doing a private coaching call with me to really kind of help me get recentered and regrounded, because I was having some, what I call loss, and it was really consuming me. And so thank you, Todd. I really, 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 really appreciate that.
My pleasure.
So I would call the month of April. I thought March Madness was going to be done because I had lost my partner in March, and then April turned out to be got a 2x4 in the head. Basically, my right-hand person decided that they want to become an originator, and they have probably made a choice to go to a big bank so that they can start their career. And so that, really, I focused so much on the last week on the loss of that instead of focusing on what I do best. It was really hard for me because, as a leader, and I don't know if anybody feels this way as a leader, I think that I'm accountable to my team. I think that I do everything I can do, and I do everything to the best of my ability. I do everything to try to help the team. And so what I realized after doing some self-appraisal, after meeting with Hunter Marcourt yesterday, I thank him so much because he really took that 2x4 against my head and told me to stop focusing on the loss and really start focusing on what I do best. And, to be happy for these people instead of sad for these people and thinking it was my loss. That was tremendously helpful for me. But one of the things that came up was accountability. And I'm not talking accountability on, what our checklists are for everybody to do, the accountability as a leader. And one of the questions that he posed to me to ask my team was, don't ask them what you can improve on. He goes, ask them what you do wrong. He goes, and keep it open. And one of the things, I hope he doesn't get mad, one of the things that he shared with me is his team had come to him and they felt so open to come to him and say, you're not involved enough with the clients. You pass on and go. And he took that to heed and he's making some changes because he listens to his team. And when he does an interview for a team member, since I'll be going through this again, one of the things that he does, which I don't do, is he lets every team member interview the new person. And every team member has a vote. He ultimately makes the decision, but they get a vote because when he hires somebody, and when I hire somebody, they have to understand this is a family. And I think that is so profound. I don't know if anybody else thinks that's profound, but as a leader of a team, making myself more accountable to what I'm doing wrong, not only what I'm doing right, is probably something that I need to get a little bit better at.
Oops, I muted myself. That was embarrassing. I was going to ask, so what's the first thing then that you're going to do? Because you said on the pre-call that you want to make sure that you're an A leader, not a C leader. What does that look like to you?
Well, the A leader part of me got on a plane on Wednesday. Instead of emailing the team to let them know that we were losing a team member, I went and had face-to-faces with them. I think that's an A leader. I went in to go talk to them one by one and ask them what their concerns would be, let them know that we were going to have a little bit. The beautiful part of my team is everybody's cross-trained, so him leaving, it's going to be more of a hitch for me than it will be for the actual process of the loan. So every one of the team members, which made me very happy and proud, every one of the team members says, what can we do to help you? What can we take off your plate while you're interviewing for a new leader, a new team captain, basically? What can we do to make sure you're not working 20 hours a day? And that, I feel like a parent, because that is a proud moment for me. And I love that.
Yeah, I think that's pretty awesome. Any feedback, Dave or Jen?
Yeah, I think that's great. I'm so impressed, Michele, because I let someone go, my right-hand person, last week. And that was tough, just as much as that. I mean, especially because, they do feel part of the family, but technically she wasn't, she was falling behind. And it was causing me to have to go back and do extra work. And it was creating some resentment within the team because everyone else had to do her work. And, and I was just sitting here thinking, when I let everyone know that I had let her go, everybody was happy. And I said, and I knew that they were not happy with her. So it wasn't that they finally said, oh, it's about time. And, that they had, not expressed that as well. But I'm really impressed that your team jumped to the task and said, what can we do to help you? I wish my team would have done that. Instead, they didn't do it for whatever reason. And so I had to have a big brainstorming meeting on how to, delegate and move the roles around. And while they were happy to do it and didn't balk about it at all and have done it, with no questions asked. I wish I would have been in the position where they said, how can I help you? Instead of me saying, this is how you're going to help me. Because I didn't really have a choice. I mean, that, we have a vacancy, and so this is how it's gonna go in so many words. But I mean, they're happy to do it, but I wish that it would have been a situation where it was enough of a family. And my team's pretty young right now, because I moved from a company about 1.5 years ago, so I have all new people, and maybe that's part of it. But I'm really impressed with that, Michele, because that really is demonstrating that you have a real solid team and a family.
Thank you so much.
So, Todd, if you could refresh Facebook on your screen. One, I hope everybody's taking notes. And Michele, it's always such a gift to have you here because you're always so transparent. You're so humble. It's clear that when things go wrong, there's a quote in Extreme Ownership, by Jocko Willink. It's one of my all-time favorite quotes, and I say it to myself all the time. There's no bad teams, only bad leaders. And so just that like, it's a hunter's point. Sometimes we could take that on too much because, let's face it, there are bad team members. But again, that's the job of the leader to get the right people in the right seat on the bus and to make sure all the people on the bus are either all A players, because if you have 3 A players and 1 C player, it's not going to work. So anyway, it's just always such a gift because you always come with such a humble heart, and we get so many takeaways. And that's super cool that you met with Hunter. For those who don't know Hunter, I think didn't his team do like 140 million last year in production?
Oh, like 140 or 150 million. They're an incredible team. And one thing that I want to add, when I met with him, so anybody who's starting a team or who's more refi driven, something he shared with me, 7 years ago, he was 95% refinances. 7 years later, he is like reverse, like 90% purchases, 10% refinances. It was pretty incredible.
Yeah, no, he's a incredible success story. And to hear that and again, by the way, that's also a great testimonial to the power of community, reaching out. We've got a really special community here. Hopefully you guys are reaching out to each other. You're helping each other. I hear all the time, success stories where you're sharing. So anyways, my ask on it is if anybody took a note and you wrote down either a quote from what Michele said or a takeaway from what Jen said, share that in our Facebook group. Let's take good notes. Let's take action. Let's get something from this. So Todd, I'll hand it back to you. I do know there are some questions on Facebook, and I'm actually away from my desktop right now, so I can't see if anybody else has raised their hand. But those are some thoughts.
No worries. And hey, Dave, if you can, I'm trying to get, if Marcy's listening, if someone could just give me access to see if people are raising their hand. I don't have access to that today for some reason. So if you guys have a question, throw it into the questions or on Facebook. But I did love Carl's question, and unfortunately I don't have access to unmute you, Carl, to talk to you directly about it. So I'm just going to read it out. You will within seconds, Todd. I'm walking back to my desktop. Perfect. So I can stall for a second.
Well, no, go ahead and read it off, but we will get you on, give you the superpowers, and we will manage that for you.
I think Carl's probably pointing out one of the things that's probably the most common that we all suffer from. When life happens, as it sometimes does, and you get off track for a spell, what's the best and fastest way to get back in the groove? And I really love the question. I love that Troy, who's such a power member of the community, that gave a comment there. And it's funny for me, when I get off track, I always look back for who are my people, right? How do I plug back in community? And so I've oftentimes heard people who get back on this call and who've been off for a while, and they say, I'm back because I fell off the wagon. I'm back because I stopped doing insane productivity and I stopped being part of it. And so oftentimes it's just re-engaging with this community. Certainly oftentimes it's who else do you have around you that's going to hold you accountable. I always feel like in life you've got to have at least one, if not more people, that are part of your accountability group. I'm sure, Jen, this is something that you coach people on a lot. What's your advice to people to get back on when they've fallen off the horse?
Yeah, well, for me, and as soon as I read that, Carl, the first thing I thought of is jam session, power hour. I mean, That's the first thing I thought of. Whenever I get off track, that is one of the first things that I think about doing is regrouping. And I feel that the jam sessions or power hours, whatever you want to call them, that it's a great way for you to get back into your business plan, into your why, which is what Troy has asked us here, and we'll discuss in a minute. But get back into your why you're doing this. We all get derailed, but when if you can visualize, two bookends, and you have the books in between, right? And your goal is to start your day right and end your day right. And sometimes there's a lot of chaos that happens in between, and it just looks like a lot of scribbling, and it's not a direct line from one side to the other. We all expect that. The key is to have those bookends, because that contains the chaos. So if you have a situation like that where the day got away from you, having a jam session or a decompression time at the end of the day and having that in the beginning of the day is always going to bring you back to the confinement. I don't mean it in a negative way, but the confinement of the platform that you've created for yourself. So it's, do my affirmations, do my morning miracle, and then in the evening do the same thing. And as long as you can continue to do those, you'll find that you'll be right back on track again tomorrow. And that'll help you from having those fall, those bookends fall, and then it becomes a habit. And so what you don't want is a habit of a total chaos day after day after day. So my recommendation would be to get yourself back into a jam session, discover your why, review your plan again, make sure you are doing the activities that you know will move the needle and make your business better.
No, I think that's perfect advice. And, I always think it does come back to your why, right? I mean, one of the things that we coach at Building Champions is a life plan, where you're looking at kind of your personal, where you're trying to head in the future, business vision, right? Where's that? What is it that I want to do in the future that makes me pretty uncomfortable, but would really get me up and drive? And, just refreshing that when you haven't looked at it in a while is a great way to drive. And Darren, right, talks about the why worksheet, which we've got here as a group, should be in the handout section. And I also think that I love that you brought up bookending your day, Jen, because it seems like we had some great dialogues before. I'd love any of you to raise your hand if you're willing to jump on and sort of talking about your morning routine or your evening routine. We've just had some amazing conversations around that. So you talked about the miracle morning. You mind walking us through what you do in the morning, Jen?
Sure, no problem. So I do follow the Savers plan that's in the Miracle Morning. So if everybody's read that, it's to be in silence, and that's really big in what we do for a living, right? Our world is so chaotic. Just to be silent and to just breathe in and breathe out. And everyone has, something that they say when they do that, but that's really what I do. Is I lay there and I lay on the floor and I just feel myself breathing in and breathing out. And I love that silence part of it. The second part is the A, which is the affirmation. So I have segmented my affirmations into different categories. So I have categories around spiritual affirmations, affirmations about being the best I can be, affirmations about my business, affirmations about the market, so that whatever my mood is, I can read those affirmations. Whatever I'm in need of. So if I had that chaotic day the day before, maybe it's about, getting centered again, for myself personally, so that I can breathe. And then the V is the vision, is visualizing. I don't have a vision board. I've tried that. For me personally, it doesn't work, but, having a vision, just visioning what you want your day to be like. What is each appointment going to be like? What do you want your life to be like? And are you, continually striving and moving in that direction for that? And then the E, I can't remember right now. All of a sudden I just had a thing on it. I'll come back to it. But the R is reading, reading a minimum of 10 pages a day. Again, that usually aligns with whatever is on my mind. So if my affirmations are spiritual in nature, most of the time my reading will be spiritual in nature. So I usually have 4 or 5 different books I'm reading at one time. Just based on whatever my mood is. And then scribing is the final S. It's journaling. journaling. Now, I do and use Darren's journal, and I think I've mentioned that to you all before. So I take a look at that journal and I make sure that I know what my goals are for that day, how many glasses of water I have to have, how many phone calls I have to make, whether I have to remind myself to, do something great, nice to my team, like just to pump my team up. And so, did I appreciate and show that appreciation to a team member today? So I'm just reminding myself of all of the things that I need to do that day. And the E, by the way, the E is exercise. So I just do, some people do yoga. I go to a studio for that, but I just do all my stretching, all my floor work. Basically what happens is you can see me doing my morning miracle on the floor in my living room. That's where I do it. I do it on the floor. So
love it,
yeah.
Jen.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Jen. Go ahead.
No. I was going to say, so it just allows me to get my head on straight, and and now I can just kind of float into work, sort of on a hoverboard. It's not that drudging, and that old commercial with Dunkin' Donuts was time to make the donuts. I may wake up that way sometimes, especially if I had a rough day the day before, but this then resets my mindset and allows me to sort of take the hoverboard in and take the high road and say I'm ready for anything.
And a couple footnotes to everything Jen just said. One, we've interviewed Hal a couple times, and one of the first interview I did where he really went through his 1 hour keynote where he tells his story, he walks through the framework in the way that Hal does it. That is in our YouTube channel. It is one of the all-time greatest calls that we've ever done, and it's also part of the must-watch, the requirements of every mortgage coach. So if you have not listened to that interview, can't emphasize enough that you do. And then just from a technology standpoint, I can't help it, but Hal mentions in the interview an app that he uses. It's called 7 Minutes, where it talks about 7-minute exercise. And then he also references the 5-minute journal, where, it's just a great way to do the journal writing and some of your scribing. So there are a couple apps that Hal uses and he recommended. So anyways, just wanted to make sure we got that out there.
No, I think that's key. And so to bring it back to the insane productivity world, right, this is module 8 where Darren talks about bookending your day. And if you've ever heard Darren speak about it, right, and he talks through, he's got some funny things that he does, right? He thinks there about what he's grateful for whatever it is, 8 or 9 minutes, however long an iPhone snoozes for, which I think is funny. And then he stretches for whatever number of minutes, and it's exactly how long it takes his coffee maker to make his coffee. So, it doesn't have to be scientific, what you do. Spiritual reading is another part of his, and then he reads for 30 minutes on something that he's trying to grow with. And so I just always think it's really seems like when I have other clients who get off track, that if they can get their bookends back in line, that's another one. I've got a client who I talked to last week, and he just said he got away from his reading, and he's got a couple of spiritual books he reads before he goes to bed, and he reads for 5 minutes only, so it's not a huge time commitment, and then he journals for 5 to 10 minutes. And he just said that when he does that, and his wife does that the two of them get along much better. And so there's certainly some areas probably that we can all look at in there. How about you, Michele? Anything that you're doing morning or evening that would be great to talk about to this group?
Yeah, I mean, I do the jam sessions. I call my power hours. In the morning, I do an hour and a half to 2 hours Monday and Fridays. And I haven't done the book ending. I kind of like that idea. So again, this is why I love this call, because I can take some notes. But one of the things that he said, how do you get back on track? I can really speak to that since I've been off track for the last couple of weeks. Have your friend hit you with a 2x4 across the head, and then you'll get back on track. Just kidding. Don't do that. But really take a look at, what's important to you. Go back to your vision statement. That's really what I had to do, is go back to my value and my vision statement and say, how do I get back here? And I took some baby steps, and I took a little bit. I know it sounds counterproductive of trying to get back and work, but I actually took a little bit of extra time for myself. To really think about what was distracting me, write it down. That was really important to me. Pen to paper for me works really well, not computer to typewriter. I pen to papered it. And the three things that were really, I have my top three things that were really bothering me and distracting me. I have a little fire pit outside. I burn them and let them go. And then I just move forward. So that's what I do.
I like that. Poof, it's gone. Burned and out of the world.
Yeah, it's gone.
I think that's cool. I think the other things that were kind of hot topics, and I'll walk through sort of what I've seen, personally in my morning. And, I think like most other people, just like Carl, right, it comes in phases of success. But my days always seem to be great when they start off there, and I kind of follow a little bit of Darren's routine. I get up, I make coffee for my wife. It's one of my jobs in my household, and for my daughters when they're home from college, and stretch while I do that. And then I'm reading afterwards, something spiritual, doing the Headspace app. We had a lot of folks last fall on this call who were using Headspace. It's been really great. I've turned on a lot of folks to that app as a 10-minute meditation app. You can set it 10, 15, or 20-minute increments, but that's been a huge game changer for me. I always thought it would be good, but what I find is the unique piece about the meditation thing for me is that they're teaching you to focus. And I find that during the day, when I get off track during the day, get distracted, that's kind of the superpower that brings me back to it. No different than when you wake up in the middle of the night and you start thinking about something you forgot to do at work, or you start thinking about something that could be stressful, or start worrying about somebody. It brings that mindset back so that I can fall back asleep. And then I do the business reading, typically from 15 minutes to whenever I get done. I know Dave's a big fan of Tools of the Titans. I've been reading that. It's been the world's longest read I've ever had, because I just read a little bit each day. And then I'm reading Ninja Selling, which is another great book if any of you are looking for a gift for realtors. It seems to be getting a lot of traction in the community that I have with my coaching clients and friends. So just a couple of other tidbits that may help. I keep looking for other people to volunteer. One thing that Carl mentioned in the questions, that's hard to find an accountability department. Do any of you have any suggestions for Carl on how to find someone to help him be accountable?
Yeah, I do. I have 5 mentors and accountability partners who are not in the mortgage business. And I chose that because it's just too easy. We can birds of a feather flock together, right? We can also become negative for one another. So I felt, for me, and I have other people in the mortgage business that I talk to, but for my mentors and my accountability partners, I wanted someone who didn't understand my business, so that they couldn't just agree with me that, yeah, that's tough. For example, if I wanted to make cold calls, for example, and I don't, but if I want to make phone calls, and it'd be too easy for me to say, well, hey, I've done that, I've been there, they're going to say no, so I just won't do it. And another mortgage person might say, yeah, don't do that. This outside influence gives me more power, nudges me on better to really make better quality decisions. So I found people that, how if you're a tennis player and you're not very good, the best thing for you to do is play with someone who's better. Always level up, who you're surrounding yourself with in your associations. And ironically, Darren just talked about that today in a Darren Daily. And so you want to up your associations. So the best thing to do is find other people that are extremely successful in the areas that you're interested in. If you see someone who's extremely connected, then find out, what they do that makes them that much more connected than the next person. Someone who, financially has made it. What were the steps that they took? And so I just surrounded myself with, there's 5 people for 5 categories, and this came from actually Brian Buffini, his 5 categories, not the mentorship, but the 5 categories. And his categories are, your business, your health, your spirituality, your family, and the other one, I can't think of it. How come I'm getting old, guys? I'm 53. I'm 34 years in lending. I always keep missing one thing all the time. But he has 5 different areas that we work in and focus on, and and that's what I did, is I found a mentor who was excellent in that area for me to go to up level and ensure that I was a 10 in all those areas. And I'm not a 10 in all, but I'm working toward that.
Are those relationships give and take? So I'm assuming that you're also speaking into their lives as well?
No, it's actually not. And that's the whole thing about having a true mentor, is that you're going to them for those services and those needs. If they want to come back to me, they can, and they have in the past asked me questions here and there. But no, it was like pulling together your advisory committee. It's your board of directors, so to speak, and each one of them has a specialty. And that specialty might be the spirituality, might be about getting your health better. Each one of them has a great way to be able to present that, and they have something I want. They have a beautiful family and no problems in their family, and I want to know how to do that. And they're strong in their faith, and I want to know how I can be stronger in my faith. And and one of them is is a workout fanatic and has a big business and is a workout fanatic, and I want to know how he gets it done. So no, it's my advisory board. It's not so much like an accountability like that as it is my advisory board, and they help me hold accountable. We have weekly meetings. Quick.
So I think people are thinking
calls.
Two questions.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are thinking, how did you identify these people,
mm-hmm.
and how did you approach them to say, hey, would you be willing to do this with me, especially now when you throw in the fact that they've committed to having a weekly phone call with you?
Yeah, well, I've known him for a really long time, so that's part of it. I did not choose anybody who, okay, well, does anybody know Dave Stevens? He's the president and CEO of Mortgage Bankers Association. Dave's one of my mentors. And sometimes what we have to do is a quick text call, but a text, he'll get in touch with me and say, if my goal was to drink 3 glasses of water a day, maybe he would just text me and say, how's it coming? Are you doing it? What are you doing? So like periodically through the week, he'll do that. And then we have a real quick call, and I give him all the reasons why I can't do something, this and that and the other. And that's where he says, bull. No, bull. You said you wanted to do this. This is what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to call you tomorrow. And the thing with me is that I'm an obliger. It's a tendency, and I'm an obliger. Even if I want to work out, I will skip working out unless I have a coach. And then it's going to cost me if I don't show up. And I will show up. And this is something I want to do. It's the same with my dancing. I think most of you know I'm a competitive ballroom dancer, and I have a coach, because that's the only way it's going to get me to the studio. So that's what I love about these people, and I've asked them to be mean with me and to be strong with me, because I can be an obliger and I can say, okay, I'll do it. But if they don't hold me accountable for these are big tasks for me, then I'll slip. And I already know that. I know that that's my tendency. As much as I want it, I know that's my tendency. So I've really sought out people that I already knew through networking, or that I saw from a distance. One of the gals, she owns Reston Limousine. It's the largest limousine company in the metro area for Washington, D.C. And Christina is great, because she's my business girl. She's the one who says, pull your big girl panties on and just go do it. And I needed a woman in that. I needed someone that I could look to that was strong, because the tendency, it still is that way these days, is that if a woman is too strong or aggressive, she's a biatch. And I wanted to, have a woman teaching me some practical business practices outside of mortgage lending. So that's what I would be. Yeah, that's what I would be doing. Is just look. You don't have to go get 5 right away. Just know where you want to peg, the people into. And I'll get the 5th one here for you in a second. But just where you want to peg people into those spots, and what you really truly need from them, and that they've got to be real strong for you.
So some are friends, and someone like a trainer, you may be paying them to have that accountability and teach you about physically fit, so you have that extra level of accountability.
Yeah, well, in that case, yes. In that case, I have several coaches for a variety of different physical things. But in the business, sure, you should have a coach, and I'm a coach as well. I coach loan officers, but yeah, having a coach is a really good way to do it, but I don't know that I would say having a coach is part of it, because I have a coach. Tim Brahim is my coach, and he's not part of this 5 advisory. That's just a side note. He's my coach.
That's different accountability,
This
right?
is a different accountability. Yeah, yeah. It's totally.
No, and I get that, and that's, you know, and I would say a lot of it, you know, when I first was a loan officer and I needed accountability, that's what Bill Hart, who's now on the screen there, served for my first 4 years as a loan officer, was as someone who helped me grow as a coach, but he also was there absolutely for accountability, because I was kind of a slacker. So that was good. So there is always that opportunity too.
Yeah, I think it's great to have both.
So I definitely, my coach, she's my life business coach, is super important, but my accountability comes from, I have 3 core people that one of them or 2 of them are in the business, one of them is not, that, you know, I tell them I need your help. And I just start with them, I need your help because I'm not doing this and I really want to do this. And I know that if I have to hold myself to a higher standard and report to somebody else, that I'm going to do it, because that's just my personality. Because I'm an obliger too. I will do anything for everybody to avoid what I'm doing. Anything.
Yes, anything, yeah.
Anything not to look at myself, I'll do. That's why I love mentoring people, because I don't have to focus on myself. That's great.
That's right. Okay, so listen, guys, the 5 areas are spiritual, family, business, financial, and then personal. Personal,
like it.
Financial, business, family, and spiritual.
You know, I think it's just important. I love that it's the well-rounded list. And I would certainly love it. You know, we haven't empowered any of you by calling you out today, but I would certainly love to see a hand or 2 go up if you have someone that you're using as a mentor. I also think you can not be afraid, whether you're new in the business or whether you're a veteran, to reach out to somebody else, right? You already heard Michele talk about that. She reached out to Hunter and met with him and learned about his business. You know, all the time, most top producers have people who reach out and ask for advice. And so the industry is sort of built on that piece of it. I remember the first time I went to it was way, it'll date me, but you guys on the call will remember, the Mortgage Originator magazine. I literally went to a seminar my first day in the mortgage business, and ironically, that's where I bought Mortgage Coach, hence the reason I'm such a big fan. But I also saw a top originator who talked about how he managed his database, and I emailed him and asked him a question. He picked up the phone and called me, and for that first year, he was someone that I talked to throughout the year and really helped me out. And, you know, in the end, it was funny. I ran into him, 10 years later. I saw him walking out of a seminar, and I just ran up and, you know, grabbed him and, you know, gave him a hug and just said, thanks. You don't know what an impact that was on me as a young originator, to have someone at the time who, you know, was in the top probably 10 or 20 in origination in the country, to be willing to take the time. And so don't be afraid to reach out to people. I think that's really another way to sort of maybe find a relationship with someone who's in this business, who also may be struggling, you know, as well. I would also probably throw out there to you, Carl, who was looking for somebody. I bet that if you looked in this list of people who are in the Insane Productivity Mastermind, if you reached out through private messaging, I bet to a handful of them, I bet you'd get most of them, if not all of them, to say that they would be willing to be part of an accountability group with you as well.
Yeah, may I interject something here too? There's a gal that I know, and I'll just keep her unnamed for now, but she's up in Massachusetts. She owns a very large mortgage company, and you know, one of the things that she said is, you know, that we always tend to go up the elevator, you know, to ask questions of people above us, and I did mention that, you know, with the tennis player, you know, that you want to do that. But I don't want us to forget that we need to sometimes go back down to the beginning of the building to bring fresh blood up with us. If we constantly are going higher and higher, it gets very stale. And, you know, that means that generally most of us have been in the business a really long time. Please don't forget to take the elevator back down to the lobby and grab new people, because they have new perspectives, new ideas, new ways of doing things. And we can always learn from people above and below us. So I just want to make sure that we're not, because maybe that's why people don't raise their hands on this, is because they're doing this up leveling. We want to make sure that people below us probably have better and new, fresh ideas that we could also learn from as well.
No, I 100% agree, and I always say that when we when we call on people, and we try not to say we pick on anyone anymore. Now we try to say we're empowering people. But I find that on, my team's got a wide variety of folks on there, but we were always scared to hire a loan officer who had no mortgage experience. And when we got a builder last summer, right as I was leaving the mortgage business, we really looked out there, and someone approached us to be on the team. She had worked at Yelp in sales, but didn't know anything about mortgages. And so, the first thing we looked at was the fact that this was an amazing opportunity for us. And we relied on the industry. We used Zenix training for, and then the team trained her and mentored her while I was living in New York last summer. And fast forward to a team meeting last month, and we were talking about scripting, and the most experienced people on the team were talking about their scripts, and it was just funny. She finally just said, "Hey, you know what? I just do it much simpler than that. Here's what I say," and it was truly genius because she was coming at it from such a different perspective, curse of knowledge that we often have. And so I love that suggestion. I think that's really good. So I'm going to pause for a moment. I'm going to ask nicely if anyone wants to raise their hand and just kind of bring up something, whether it's from what's going on in the mortgage world right now or something specifically from Insane Productivity that you'd love to interject, because I do think that this call gets better when we get input from all of you. But I also will take a moment and circle back on the other topic that we sort of talked about, which was listing agents, Jen, that you talked about. And for those of you who've been on the call the last few weeks, it's been a common topic. I mean, people are running into challenges, especially if you're in a market that is thin on listings. But you said you're continuing to have struggles. I'd love to kind of hear an update from you, what you're seeing.
Sure. I wouldn't say it's continuing to have struggles. I'm just saying that it's just in front of us. I mean, it's just in our face. I mean, every agent is having these phone calls. I think I mentioned that, I was on a panel with there are four total of us in the area that are top producers in the area. We were on a panel doing a topic called The Real Truth in Lending, where we had an audience of real estate agents, and we discussed, why we don't work so well together and how we could work better together, lenders and real estate agents, throughout the whole process. So it wasn't just in the listing piece of it and dealing with the listing agent, but it was every aspect of it, and it was unbelievable. But just yesterday, I was interviewed on another podcast where there was another real estate agent. Now, I'm from Washington, D.C. He's from Seattle, Washington. And the two of us were being interviewed about, the relationships with and what we wish consumers would come to the table with, and wish that they would understand. And do you know, he on his side, and he's a mega producer, he's struggling with the same thing that we're struggling with. So, it's like we all are struggling with this, but not talking about it. And so one of the things that he does, and I wanted to share this with everyone because we had talked about this a couple weeks ago, but one of the things that he does is he sends a lender verification form to us as loan officers as soon as a pre-approval letter is put in front of him. So we send a pre-approval letter to him. He immediately sends a lender verification form back and says, if you will fill this out and get it back to me, I will present the offer to my seller. He will not present an offer without this letter in the file. And he was so gracious enough to send me the form. And you have to sign it as a loan officer saying, I validate that that I've reviewed this and this information is accurate and correct. So it's going even beyond what we were discussing a few weeks ago. We had all come up with a lot of ideas like, what do we put in our letter, about calling the listing agent, not waiting for them to call us, but us calling them as soon as we've issued the letter, perhaps doing a bomb video or just a regular video, sending them a total cost analysis that they can share with the sellers. We had all of these great ideas that we were saying, how could we differentiate ourselves in how we present our little pre-approval letter to have a significant, major impact, along with the credit-only approvals as well. But now here's another form that they're actually out there trying to find ways to work with us better at the same time. And I see this as a huge opportunity as us individually to be talking to listing agents and, not kind of shying away from our conversations with listing agents because they don't have the buyers. So things like he was asking, have you done the verification of income or is it pending? Have you done a verbal verification of employment? Which of course I haven't done in the beginning, but wanted to know. Have you pulled a tri-merge credit report and not just a single? I can't believe anyone's still doing that, but yeah, we have. Any contingencies that we need to be aware of? Do they have a house to sell? Do they have personal property to sell? Do they have a source of funds such as a gift, or they're waiting on an estate? Do they have to liquidate any assets? Do they have any debt liquidation that has to happen? Do we have to resolve any credit issues? Is there a dispute listed on their credit report that hasn't been resolved yet that could hold this file up? I mean, just a plethora of questions that, they're really digging deep. The one thing I do like is it doesn't say what is the credit score. Because
yeah, I was going to say,
so
it sounds like
many
they're
of them,
close to crossing the privacy line there, but
right.
But in the end, if the client wants the house, the client's going to give you permission. And I have to imagine that since he's put lenders through this, that he's had a higher success rate of deals closing, and I think it's certainly going to make a lender second guess their own process if they haven't done some of these things when they're signing on the dotted line.
Yeah, I think it's really powerful. And he said, look, we've taken lesser offers because these things weren't done. And it's important to know where we stand. Has the loan been ran through an AUS system? Have you done that? Have you validated income? Other than just, what's the verification of employment? Actually, I don't like his form because he said it just says verification of income, yes or pending.
Right, which leaves some out there for error too. So
yes,
I think it's interesting. Do you have someone on your team, or maybe you, Michele, who does any kind of pre-underwriting of a file, like scrubs it in a really serious way?
Yes, the person who's leaving me.
That's your right hand.
My right hand does that, but
yeah.
I love this. I mean, this is something, guys, take what Jen is saying, and maybe even this might help you with your agents that are having listings, and say, listen, instead of a cross-qual, let me do a lender verification form, because everybody hates the word cross-qual, and say, yes, I have verified this. I have verified this, so that when your listing agent goes to present his offers, he goes, not only because my lender, who I trust and have a relationship with, has done all this. Here's their lender certification form. I mean, that is brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah. I think it's great. So I sent this off to Fiverr, and I'm already having them make it for me. So make a form so that we're just going to make it part of our pre-approval letter.
I love it. Those of you guys don't know who Fiverr is. It's an online thing where you pay someone $5 and they do it for you, right?
Yep. It's awesome.
So it's cheap too. So that's I think that's good. And yeah, my team has a pre-underwriter. She used to be a processing manager, and I would say that the companies that we've worked for really don't like the name pre-underwriter, but nonetheless, that's how my team sells her out in the marketplace, and it's always been a unique selling proposition. And she does do all of that stuff up front. She's going to get a verification of employment in everything. So her file's literally 99.9% success rate in closing when she's done that, versus a loan officer on the team, looking at it, holding it up to the light, seeing if they think it works.
Right.
Those tend to work too, but they work with a lot more struggle and stress and time put into it than the ones that are actually put through the ringer up front.
Yeah.
Plus the clients are happier they're not doing it once they're under contract.
Bingo. Yeah. And, that's a great selling feature for clients too, is just, I'd rather have you go through the hoops of getting us all of the documentation before you're under the strain and stress of a contract. And they love that. Absolutely love that.
Yeah. That's a great script. I was laughing because my wife runs our team, and she'll forward me the emails that are like just the dumbest emails of the week. And there was one where one of the loan officers on our team, and she's a seasoned loan officer, she's really smart, and her reply to the client was, ugh, we need one more thing. And I'm thinking to myself, all right, now you just took a client who probably thought this was just part of the mortgage process, and now you made them know that you thought this was a dumb thing, and now they're probably thinking it's a dumb thing, and you took their satisfaction level down a notch, versus just what you said, prep them up front, right? Hey, we're going to need a lot of stuff. And so I think scripting is so important. We should probably plan some more scripting calls amongst this group going forward.
And something I'd love to jump in, you guys, for 1 second, just an idea to throw out there and think about. This is something that you could do if you guys, I don't know how many of you split your realtors into like, I have an elite group, I have an A group, and then I have a B group. My B group is really just nobody. My A and my elites are where I go, but my elites, I have my top 10 in. And maybe you sit there and say, hey, we're going to do this lender verification form on every deal that you have just for your elite group, just for being part of our elite group. And maybe that sets you apart. Remember, what's our number one thing as a salesperson? We need to stand out and do value. So I just love this. I mean, to see all my notes, Jen, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome. I just felt like we needed to, drill it down a little bit more because new things are popping up, new ways of communicating. And I thought, well, here it is. You don't even have to make a phone call to me if you don't want to, because I'm going to give you all the data.
No, we love it. We appreciate your generosity. I mean, I think that's, one of the fun parts about this group is that everyone's so willing to share what they've got. And so let me ask you a quick Fiverr question, because I tried to use Fiverr once for a logo, and it's the world's worst logo, but I thought I had paid $5, and what did I expect? Do you just hire one person there, or do you throw it out to 3 or 4 and say, I'm going to spend $20 on this, and then you just take the best one, or what's your success strategy been there?
Yeah, well, once I find someone who's really good at a specific task, I keep them. So to get them in the beginning, they call them gigs. It's a gig. And so when you're looking for a gig, you can search by the type of gig that's there, and you can see the reviews that the person has. You can see samples of what they have. They'll write a little dissertation. A lot of people there's moms in Michigan. There's people in the Philippines, people in Australia. They're all over the place. And the way that they write will be an indicator of what type of business you're going to get back. So if it says, do your deal, that's, versus, thank you so much for the opportunity. Please find attached more recommendation letters. Well, bingo, right? And so we give them a try. And okay, it doesn't work out. It was $5, right? But yeah, it depends on the level. I've had people do just fix my presentations, update my presentations. Say, look, I don't like the background anymore. I don't like the graphics. I want the same content, the same type of graphics, but I just want photos, not goofy cartoons. Can you do that? And they do that, and then they change the color and they make the transitions. I want a flyer. They'll do a flyer for me, and then I'll send my flyer to my marketing and my compliance department. They add all the little doodads they need to, and off we go. But I'm not taxing my team at making a form. So I use them for quite a few things. I do a lot of transcribing. So I'll write, I want to write something, and so I'll dictate it. So for example, my affirmations, right? I was just adding it to I was dictating it to myself through, an app on my phone that's just a video or an audio. I was dictating, and I saved it, and then I'd add to it, and then I finally just sent the whole thing to them and asked them to transcribe it for me, and it was $5, and now I can read my affirmations. So yeah, there's all kinds of things that you can have people do for on Fiverr. Just tons.
Well, I think that's great to be thinking about, right? Because Darren, again, let's tie it back to Insane Productivity for a minute. Darren talks about what's your hourly rate, right? And I promise you that most of your hourly rate is more than $5 an hour. Yep. At least I hope it is, but I would be willing to bet a lot of money that that's the case for this crew. And so, I just love that idea. And I think a lot of us, myself, at least I'll speak for, are scared to do that. I'm working on a Salesforce project that I'm outsourcing, and I'm reviewing people right now, and it's a little more than $5 because most of them are, $8 if they have no experience to way above that. But I do think the other challenge is how do you get them the right stuff up front to make sure that they can execute for you. And it sounds to me like you just said, hey, I just put it all out there and then I send it to them and they do it. So that's awesome, is jump in and do it and start off cheap so that if it's not perfect, then you don't feel like you wasted your money.
Right. Again, there are specialists on Fiverr who do Salesforce. So if you have a software, there's specialists. There are specialists who will say, who will do some Salesforce.
Maybe I can get a workflow built for $5. Okay, let's give that a shot.
Yeah.
Well, It's my next on time is to actually spend the time to write out what it is I need them to do, because it'll take me 3 minutes to write out each one versus 45 minutes to an hour to program each one. And just right now that's not a good use of my time. I'm good at it though, and I like it sort of, not enough that it's going to be something I'm going to do in my spare time.
Yeah, I think anything that you don't like to do, just think of someone else that could do it for you. And I have virtual assistants locally as well. I have somebody who does shopping for me too, but because I don't have the time to go and pick up prescriptions and pick up things, and so they just do those. So any place in your life that you can find a place where someone could be, if you're charging someone $20 an hour to go to run errands for you, then if they're doing it from 2 to 4 on a specific day, then from 2 to 4, I'm going to make sure that I'm doing something that's lead generating activities.
I love it. All right, so believe it or not, we only have 3 minutes left in this call, and on one hand, I feel like Jen, Michele, you guys just nailed it. So I'm so appreciative always to have you guys here. Thank you, Carl, for kind of setting us up with a question that got us rolling. I sort of apologize, but I don't, that we didn't empower you guys, because I felt the conversation was going. So I'd love to hear some feedback on what you guys thought. A couple follow-up things. I made some notes on some of the other ideas that we talked about here, so maybe we could do a segment on outsourcing and virtual assistants and scripting. And so I've kind of got some other ideas for some future topics. We would love to hear that from you guys, and I would definitely encourage you guys to come next week with some willingness to get involved. I'm going to encourage Dave that maybe we empower you folks from the get-go. There's a couple of great things that Dave posted in here. He posted in Bill Hart's Larry Kendall interview. He wrote Ninja Selling. If you guys are looking for a great book to read that you could use to coach realtors, use to share with realtors, and there's also a lot of gems in there for yourself, I would encourage ordering that book. He's got the link to Headspace in there. So that is the app that I mentioned. I've got a post that hopefully, see, none of you guys were multitasking. I knew you were waiting to get off the call. I'd love to hear what you guys are doing, specific activities to bookend your day. I made some notes here that Dave talked about, the 7-minute app, and then also the 5-minute journal, so we'll throw those in there. I love his quote from Michele, and then again, we'll continue to come on the Friday morning of, ask for your topics, and make it happen. In the meantime, make sure you all have just a super productive week. I'm really appreciative that you took time to be here today. Thank you again to Jen, and thank you again to Michele. Appreciate both of you being here, and on behalf of Dave and the rest of the crew, you guys have a wonderful week. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, you too. Bye.